Spine-chilling secrets revealed. 6 real stories from haunted embalmers expose the sinister truth. Samantha Collins had always steered clear of death and decay. But inheriting her estranged grandmother's weathered home in Caldwell, Ohio, she felt a gravitational pull she couldn't resist. Upon entering the creaking old house, the air thickened with palpable tension, whispering tales of past lives swallowed by time. The roof sagged as if to weep for the secrets within. She pushed the door open, shadows brushed against her. Unopened boxes piled high, a chaotic monument to a life left unexamined. At first, the stillness of suburban life seemed inviting. Nirvana compared to her chaotic life as a forensic technician in the city. But then came the rustling, faint at first, like leaves scratching against the ground, always lingering just beyond her reach. Every night, she felt eyes creep up her spine, and the mirrors, oh, those mirrors. She could swear they twisted her reflection into something unrecognizable. With a deep breath, she forced herself to dismiss it all, believing it was just her imagination running wild after years of city stress. But curiosity wormed its way in. What had her grandmother truly done as a funeral director? The unspoken legacy drew her closer to the dark corners of her family history. Digging through dusty old journals, she stumbled upon names 5 embalmers, each hiding sinister tales beneath the surface of their trades. A young boy who swore he heard the dead speak, an affair that spiraled into blackmail, and veils of deceit draping over smiling families at the funeral home. Each story left her heart racing, pushing at the edges of her sanity. Her neighbors grew wary, too. She felt the tension thickening like a fog that wouldn't lift. Conversations froze, laughter cut short as she approached. It was all too peculiar, unnerving. The more she probed, the deeper the silence fell, their evasive glances leaving her feeling like an outsider in her own bloodline. What are they hiding? She wondered, heart thrumming in her chest, scrambling for answers. Suddenly, late one night, her hands trembled as she opened her grandmother's journals, revealing strange symbols scrawled in the margins like spidery whispers of warning. Keep away, they seemed to say. Panic pulsed through her veins as she realized that her family might have crossed lines meant to stay unbreached, keeping the dead alive for sinister purposes. The air felt charged, alive with danger, and Samantha could feel it breathing down her neck. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system, and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Just as she resolved to flee from the madness, a loud crash erupted from the basement, reverberating through the old house like a death knell. Heart racing, sweat trickling down her spine, Samantha descended the narrow stairs. Shadows danced around her, the oppressive darkness nearly suffocating. She reached for the flickering light switch, but before she could move, she heard the whispers of tormented spirits echoing through the damp air. As her breath caught in her throat, stark awareness hit her. This house, this history, was woven into the fabric of Caldwell, a place where resurrection wasn't just a fancy word. Who was haunting whom? The dread wrapped around her like a noose, tightening with every beat of her panicked heart. As shadows closed in, she could only wonder if she'd made a grave mistake by returning home. The basement felt alive, pulsating with an energy that was almost palpable. Samantha paused at the bottom of the stairs, her heart thundering like a war drum in her chest. The whispers grew louder, swirling around her, clawing at her sanity. They sounded like cries, pleas for help, or maybe warnings, layered with sadness. She wished she could shut them out, but dread lodged itself in her throat, rendering her unable to move. Suddenly, a sharp crack echoed throughout the space, bringing her back to the moment. Now was not the time for fear. She forced herself to step further into the dim light, straining her eyes against the thick shadows. Everything seemed to shift, slipping in and out of focus. Old boxes lay strewn across the floor, their contents spilling into the darkness: worn funeral wreaths, dusty ornaments, and what looked like fragments of photographs. Samantha knelt to examine one of the photos. A family stood on the steps of a funeral home, smiles plastered across their faces. Beneath the surface, there was a sense of unease. Something in their eyes lacked warmth, almost as if they were merely shells, pretending to be filled with joy. The chill ran deep, curling around her spine. Why did her grandmother have such secrets, tucked away with the very memories that should have been cherished? She was about to search for more when a cold draft swept through the room, sending shivers cascading over her skin. The whispers turned into urgent murmurs, echoing louder than before. This was no longer a simple basement. It transformed into a vessel of sorrow, cradling endless stories of the dead. As she pushed herself up, a shadow darted across the wall, quick as a lightning bolt. With her breath hitching, Samantha spun around, just in time to see a flicker of movement retreating into the corners. It wasn't her imagination. Someone or something was here with her. "Hello?" she called, her voice cracking under the weight of fear. Silence draped over her like a heavy blanket. The winds raged outside, howling as thunder rumbled in the distance. Gathering every ounce of courage she could muster, she moved deeper into the shadows. Yet, with each step forward, the air became thicker, like molasses weighing down her legs. She was not just searching for answers anymore. She was being drawn into something sinister. An ancient wardrobe loomed in the corner, its door slightly ajar. Against her better judgment, she felt compelled to pull it open. The hinges groaned in protest, the sound grating against her nerves. Inside, she discovered old uniforms, funeral garb that hadn't seen the light of day in decades, along with strange jars filled with murky substances. Was this what her grandmother had used to work with the dead? Clenching her jaw, she recoiled as a foul odor assaulted her senses. Then, out of the corner of her eye, something shifted beneath the surface of one of the jars. A shadow moved. It was alive. Terror surged through her veins as she stumbled back. As she steadied herself against the wardrobe, her hand brushed against an envelope hidden there. The frayed edges beckoned her, despite the instinct to turn away. She tore it open, revealing a single sheet filled with her grandmother's chaotic scrawl. The words read like an incantation, an unforgiving survival guide that pressed on her psyche like a haunting echo. "They never truly leave," it began. Before she could process the meaning, a low growl slipped from the shadows, chilling Samantha to her core. The whispers crescendoed as if the very walls were alive, breathing in their desperation. "You shouldn't be here." With a violent rush, the shadows lunged toward her. She could feel them, cold hands grasping at her limbs, pulling her down into the depths of the unknown. Panic ignited her movements as she dashed back toward the stairs, the unforgiving darkness clawing at her heels. What truths had she unwittingly uncovered? And who or what now pursued her with a growing hunger? Samantha could feel the boundary between life and death blurring, leaving her clinging to the precipice. As she reached the stairs, she stole one last glance back. Another shadow emerged from the darkness, laughter echoing in the dark. Was her grandmother protecting the world from something horrific? Or had Samantha breached a barrier meant to stay sealed? The next moment, the thunder crashed, and the world went dark. Samantha's heart raced as she stumbled backwards, the darkness behind her closing in like a hungry beast. Her palms were slick with sweat, and her breath came in sharp gasps, echoing off the concrete walls. She whirled around, desperate for the faintest hint of light to guide her escape. But the shadows were alive, swirling, twisting, coiling around her like serpents ready to strike. A cold chill swept through the basement, invigorating the whispers that clawed at her mind. She pressed her hands against her ears, trying to drown out their insistent murmurs, a tapestry of sorrow woven tightly around her consciousness. "You shouldn't be here, you shouldn't be here." Suddenly, a blinding flash illuminated the basement for a split second, revealing a silhouette standing right at the foot of the stairs. Samantha gasped, the air escaping her like a deflating balloon. Was it real? Was she truly alone? Her eyes strained against the encroaching shadows as she tried to discern whether the figure was a figment of her imagination or something far more sinister. She took a cautious step back. The worn wooden stair beneath her creaked ominously. The moment she shifted her weight, something tightened around her ankle. Cold tendrils snaked up her leg, binding her in place. Frantically, she tried to shake it off, but their grip only strengthened, pulling her back toward the depths of the basement. "No, no!" she screamed, her voice breaking against the overwhelming darkness. With a burst of adrenaline, she lunged forward, ripping herself free. The shadows hissed in protest, and in that moment, she felt the icy breath of something foul against her neck. She didn't look back. Instead, she sprinted toward the stairs, her feet pounding against the wooden steps, each one echoing with desperation as she lunged for the cellar door. It echoed back the notion of retreat. It was locked tight. Panic clawed at her throat as she rattled the doorknob, but it remained steadfast, mockingly refusing her escape. Behind her, the whispers grew frantic, their pitch raised as if sensing her fear. In the inky blackness, something began to form a mass that twisted and swirled like a tempest. It resembled a figure, but its features morphed like a broken mirror, never settling into anything recognizable. "You shouldn't have come here," the entity growled, and the ground beneath her feet trembled with each word. Samantha pressed her back against the door, breathing wildly, her mind racing for any avenue of escape. With no time to ponder, she swung around, her eyes landing on the wardrobe. The jars, they might hold some hidden truth, something her grandmother had sealed away. Gathering every ounce of courage, she dashed toward it, her hands trembling as she yanked open the doors. Shadows writhed within the jars, their contents whispering secrets too ancient to grasp. She felt drawn to one particular jar, a putrid haze billowing from it as if it held the soul of a long-forgotten wretch. Suddenly, the growl resonated again, this time louder, more visceral. The air harvested a blood-chilling intensity. It was as if the darkness was alive, summoning a hunger that demanded to be fed. Just as she reached for the jar, an unseen force slammed the wardrobe shut, sending her sprawling onto the floor. Dazed, she looked around. The malevolent figure moved closer, its whisper dancing in her ear. "You know too much, you have to join us." Adrenaline surged through her veins as she got to her feet, a flicker of determination igniting within her. Delving into the darkness of her grandmother's past might have cost her dearly, but she was not ready to become another lost soul trapped in this cursed space. Just as she turned to face the entity head-on, the thunder cracked once more, a deafening roar that seemed to shake the very foundations of the house. For a moment, everything fell silent, the whispers, the shadows, even her pounding heart. And in that stillness, she noticed the wall. A hidden door revealed itself, slightly ajar, flickering light spilling through the crack. An escape, or another trap? With her heart caught between desperation and curiosity, she rushed to the door, unsure of what awaited her on the other side. What was truly waiting behind that door? And would it lead to salvation or deeper into the abyss? The moment Samantha reached for the hidden door, the world around her spun. She hesitated, heart pounding, as a flicker of light danced through the crack, taunting her with the possibility of escape. But the airy whispers surged again, skyrocketing into a frenzied chorus of despair. "Don't go," they begged, their voices pregnant with fear that mirrored her own. She pressed on the door, and with all her strength, pushed it wider. Creaking hinges groaned like a dying animal. The beam of light spilled into the dark basement, illuminating a narrow passage leading to a room at the back. It smelled of mildew and decay, yet it burned bright with the soft glow of something alive. Hope ignited within her. She had to move as she stepped through the doorway. The shadows seemed to screech, swirling in a desperate attempt to snag her. She felt the icy fingers of the entity closing in behind her, but she didn't stop. The air in the passageway was thick and heavy, each breath more laborious than the last. Samantha forced herself to look ahead, finding a bare bulb flickering above an old wooden table draped in dusty linen. Books were strewn about, pages yellowed and brittle, adorned with dusty symbols she could barely decipher. But one thing was undeniable: these were the remnants of secrets long buried. Her eyes caught a large tome sitting open in the middle of the table, inked scrawls running frantically across the pages. As she stepped closer, her pulse raced. The letters shimmered in the dim light, words spilling forth, swirling like smoke. It was a lineage of rituals, of dark pacts made in desperation. "This is what they feared," she murmured, the reality of her grandmother's history crashing over her like a tidal wave. Suddenly, the room trembled. The very walls seemed to groan, the shadows writhing around her as if they were alive, hungry for vengeance. Samantha turned to flee, but the passageway she had just entered had vanished, leaving her trapped within the suffocating confines of a reality she didn't want to comprehend. The whispers escalated, their words jumbled yet insistent, pulling at her sanity. Join us," echoed through her mind as she desperately searched for another way out. The coldness seeped further into her bones, twisting her thoughts into a spiral of despair. As she backed away, she bumped into something solid. Cautiously turning around, she encountered the very entity she had fled from, now fully formed and towering, bathed in a shadowy glow that pulsated against the walls. Its face was a grotesque revelation, shadows swirling as it grinned, eyes like voids staring right at her soul. "Do you understand now?" it hissed, voice a haunting melody laced with darkness. "Your bloodline carries more than just memories. It's a legacy of the forsaken." Samantha felt her resolve shatter. Breathing heavily, she scanned the room for an escape. Just then, a low rumble echoed in the room, a distant sound growing louder and more violent. The foundation trembled beneath her feet, and cracks began to spiderweb across the floor. Was it her imagination, or was the very house coming alive, angry at the intruder meddling with its secrets? With no idea where to go, she lunged for the open tome again, praying for answers. But hot breath brushed against her ear, sharp claws reaching for her. "Will you sacrifice it all?" the creature growled, mere inches from her face now. Samantha screamed, eyes wide with horror, the flickering light above proving unstable. The pressure mounted as time elongated, suspense clawing at her sanity. And all she could think was, what was resting in the pages of that tome? As darkness closed in, she knew she had to fight back. Would the truth she uncovered empower her, or would it pull her deeper into the abyss? The shadows twisted around Samantha, suffocating her in darkness. She could feel the entity's presence looming large, a palpable heat that blurred the edges of her vision. The words from the tome tangled in her mind, tantalizing yet terrifying. "Will you sacrifice it all?" echoed like a taunt as her heart raced, pounding against her ribcage, desperate to escape the grip of shadows pulling at her sanity. Panic surged as she searched for something, anything. The air tasted stale and heavy with foreboding. Without thinking, she threw her arm toward the tome, fingers trembling as they skimmed over its parchment. Panic-fueled adrenaline sharpened her focus, and she scanned the sprawling script. What if there was a way to banish the entity threatening her life? The dark, swirling shadows pulsed, growing closer, eager for her surrender. "Speak the words." A whisper slithered through the room, oily and sinister, wrapping around her thoughts. The language felt ancient, dark curses draped in seductive mystery. Was that the way to freedom, or simply another trap? Turning desperate, she spoke any line that sprung to her lips, urgency propelling her voice through the claustrophobic confinement. Each word sparked something within the tome, igniting the pages with fierce light. It illuminated fragments of hidden text, revealing dangerous truths layered like a forbidden cake. Cracks throbbed beneath her feet. The floor felt alive, rumbling as if the house was trying to indignantly throw her out. With a glance toward the entity, she noticed its grin fracture, shadows writhing and twisting into shapes of wrath. "Stop!" the creature shrieked, but Samantha pushed through her fear, the growing light intensifying around. The more words she unleashed, the louder the shadows howled, twisted faces appearing within them, shrieking in chorus. And then a flicker of clarity broke through the chaos. "Your bloodline," she breathed, a thought forming. What if she could channel this legacy rather than fear it? "I'm not their sacrifice," A rush of courage filled her veins, surprising even herself. If her lineage held darkness, surely it also held power. Taking a step forward, she steadied herself. The tome pulsed like a heartbeat, words spiraling around her, almost beckoning. She concentrated, fists clenched tight around air, and focused on the essence of those final words she had shouted. I am stronger. I am alive. The shadows recoiled, the entity's grin faltering as the light surged, glowing brighter than the sun. A heat wrapped around her, swirling in bands of golden glow. Samantha felt the air shift, a new vibration humming through. The immense presence lunged at her, but with every ounce of will, she directed the power within her. A white-hot energy blasted from her outstretched hands, colliding with darkness. Time warped. Seconds stretched into lifetimes as waves of light crashed against the entity. It let out a guttural roar, oscillating between rage and fear, grasping for her. Shadows dissolving under the weight of her fiery defiance. But then darkness flickered for a moment, and suddenly silence. The air hung heavy as if the world took a collective breath, a pause of uncertainty. Had she won, or was this a mere lull before greater terror? Before Samantha could catch her breath, the floor beneath her trembled violently. A crack spread wide, swallowing fragments of the room, dragging them into an abyss. She stumbled back, barely steadied herself on the table as books toppled and dust engulfed the air. But just then, Amy, her younger sister, appeared in the dimly lit doorway, wide-eyed and terrified. Sam, what's happening? Panic crashed over Samantha anew, but there was no time to explain. As the walls groaned, she grabbed her sister's wrist, ready to bolt. Run. We need to get out now. They dashed toward the collapsing door, shadows swirling back to life, angry and insatiable, closing in at breakneck speed. Would the dark secrets of their bloodline bind them in eternal torment, or could unity give them power to escape? The chase had only just begun. The air thickened as Samantha and Amy fled toward the door, their hearts pounding in synchrony with the tremors of the collapsing house. Shadows clawed at their heels, writhing, hungry, as if each corner of the room were alive with malice. Faster! Samantha gasped, feeling the darkness brush against her like icy fingers, pulling her back into its grasp. She could hear them, the whispers of centuries, laced with agony and despair. Doubts slapped at her mind. Would the tome's power hold? Or was it all an illusion? Amy stumbled behind her, breath labored as she struggled to keep pace. Where do we go? Samantha glanced back, eyes wide in horror. The entity was reforming amidst the shifting shadows, its grotesque figure twisting together like smoke coiling in a storm. The front door, we have to make it outside. In a singular motion, they rushed toward the door, the distant sounds of wood splintering echoing like thunder. Samantha reached for the knob, desperately twisting, praying it wasn't locked. Wood splintered further as a hand clawed and black as night shot through the shadows, reaching for them. A slow-motion moment froze her, dread wrapping around her heart like a vice grip. With a fierce tug on Amy's arm, she yanked her sister backward just as the hand missed them by inches, crashing against the wall, leaving a gash that dripped shadows like ink. Go! She screamed. We can't look back. They barreled forward, Amy's fear coiling around them, thick and suffocating. The heaviness in the air felt tangible, almost like it was squeezing every ounce of energy from their bodies. Where's Mom? Where's Dad? Panic broke in Amy's voice, shattering Samantha's focus. She shook her head, desperate to hold on to the hope they'd get out of this alive. We'll find them. We have to stick together. Suddenly, the floor beneath Samantha buckled, and she stumbled, crashing onto her knees. The sound of grinding wood filled her ears as she glanced up. The shadows were thickening, swirling violently, trapped in a vortex of rage. Sam! Amy shouted, urgency dripping from her tone. Get up! Samantha pushed herself off the floor, heart racing as a painful throb resonated in her head. They were running out of time. The shadows were forming a wall now, a barrier of darkness that threatened to cut them off from escape. With a surge of desperation, She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small dagger, a relic passed down through the family. I can use this. I can fight it. What? No, Sam. It's too dangerous. Amy cried, horror dawning on her face. Trust me. Samantha's voice was adamant. The shadows flickered, sensing her resolve, as the dagger glowed faintly in her grasp. Just before she lunged forward, a disembodied voice echoed through the room, cold and mocking. Do you really think you can escape your fate, Samantha? The lights flickered above them, a heartbeat of despair pulsing through the house, and Samantha's heart thudded in her chest. Could the dagger help? Or would it only serve to unleash an even darker power? Would fighting the entity bring them closer to freedom or seal their doom? With the walls convulsing and the shadows clawing at her, she stood her ground. This ends now. But just as she readied the blade, a revelation hit her. The entity could sense her fear, and those shadows were not just a prison, they were alive. Tied to her family's darkest secrets as darkness swirled hungrily about them. Samantha realized the true nature of her nightmare was rooted deeper than she ever imagined. The way out lay not just in power but knowledge, even acceptance. Would the answer to their survival lie within the very darkness she sought to fight? In that sudden moment of clarity, everything began to unravel. What unspeakable truth awaited them in the shadows? The very heart of their family history might just be the key or the final lock. Samantha's breath caught in her throat as the shadows danced around her, taunting, whispering secrets she never wanted to hear. Each flicker of darkness felt like a claw scraping against her mind, digging deeper into her memories, tugging them out one by one. She felt the dagger's cold weight in her hand like a fragile lifeline. But could it really pierce through this darkness that clung to her so desperately? Think, Sam. You have to remember, she hissed, forcing her mind to focus. The entity behind the shadows stirred, a ghastly silhouette blending into the desperation swirling in the air around them. I don't want to be here. Please let us just go, Amy begged, her voice trembling. Her eyes reflected an abyss of terror that made Samantha's heart twist painfully. I will find a way, Samantha promised, gripping the dagger tighter. Memory blurred as a sudden crash echoed from above, a heavy thud, like a heavy footfall, reverberating ominously through the house. We're not alone, it's coming for us. With barely a second to lose, she turned to the wall, now fully enveloped by shadows. What do I need to do? She whispered, desperation clawing at her throat. Was there something, a word, a spell, a truth? Behind you, croaked a voice that echoed from the dark. No human voice could bear such weight, soaked in grief. Samantha's heart raced as cold sweat trickled down her back. What? She gasped, turning slowly, dread filling her with every inch. The shadows writhed, and from them emerged a figure, not the twisted monstrosity she'd been expecting, but a woman, flickering like a candle flame. She looked familiar, with long hair that streamed like shadows behind her. Mom! Samantha cried out, a mixture of relief and horror flooding her veins. But the figure's face twisted into a mask of anguish. Help me, help us. They are here because of you, because of your blood. No, you're lying. You can't be. But as her voice faded, so did her confidence. The figure reached out, her spectral hand shimmering in and out of focus. You have to remember the truth, Samantha. The tome wasn't just power. It was a trap, a burden passed through our family for generations. A memory surfaced, a whispering family secret told late at night, a warning given half in jest. Something about their lineage being cursed. Shadows flickered in and out, echoing the family past that tied to the house, this dreadful place. Do it, Amy cried, wrenching Samantha back to the moment. Whatever you have to do, do it. We're running out of time. She held the dagger high, the faint glow brightening as she pierced the shadows with her resolve. I'm not afraid of you. I'll end this. But as she brought the dagger down, the shadows recoiled, screaming in agony. The woman's visage faded into a terrifying grin. You have no idea what you're unleashing. Suddenly, the ground shook violently. The walls groaned, and Samantha stumbled, narrowly avoiding a gnashing teeth-like shadow that lunged toward her. Sam, look, Amy pointed, terror-stricken. From the once serene family photos lining the walls, faces twisted into snarls, seething with wrath. The shadows fed on their fury their past. Fight it. But as Samantha's strength waned, she felt the truth crushing her weighty secrets that suffocated any escape. I can't just fight it without knowing what it is. Then learn it. The key isn't the fight, it's the acceptance. Defiance burned in Samantha's heart, but it was laced with an anguish deeper than fear. The walls screamed. Shadows twisted violently around them, capturing them, claiming them. Was the ultimate truth a sacrifice? As darkness cascaded, suffocating hope, an echoing laugh filled the room. The shadows weren't just sorrow, they were hungry for recognition and revenge. Would they be consumed by the very darkness Samantha tried to resist? In that moment, the house screamed, and all liberation felt impossibly far away. What did it mean to accept the past? A shadow lunged, and the dagger slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Now on the brink of a choice that could seal their fates. As darkness enveloped them, what would Samantha uncover about her family's ties to the horrors outside? Would she embrace the truth or be devoured by the shadows? Samantha stared wide-eyed at the abyss that threatened to swallow her whole. She felt the walls pulse with darkness, a living thing that writhed and twisted. The faces in the photos, her ancestors, appeared monstrous now, their fury corrupting every corner of her mind. The laughter echoed still, sharp and cruel, taunting her deliberation. Get the dagger, Amy cried, scrambling to grab it. The frantic energy pulsed through her, but the shadows snatched at her hands, cold and clammy, pulling her back. Samantha felt a surge of desperation. She couldn't let them take Amy. Stay away from her, Samantha shouted, thrusting her hands forward as if to push back the creeping tendrils of darkness. For a split second, she thought she saw the sadness in the shadows shift into something almost human. We're their salvation, Samantha screamed, knowing she had to summon her strength. What was blood without truth? What was family without the silence that shrouded their curse? Flashes of memories crashed into her mind, her mother's soft voice, her quiet warnings, the feel of an old leather-bound tome against her skin. A thread of understanding pulled tight in her mind. But what did it mean? If she accepted the truth, did that mean sacrificing everything? But what if refusing it meant losing Amy forever? Remember, the fading figure of her mother urged from the shadows, her eyes luminous yet shadowed with despair. The tome must be destroyed. Only then the cycle can end. No, Amy shrieked as vines of shadow snaked around her arms, pulling her closer to a darkness that seemed to echo out of the very walls. Samantha, please! Panic surged through Samantha, fueling her limbs with forgotten strength. She staggered toward Amy, the whispers growing louder, cutting through the fear. Don't fight it. Accept it. Amy gasped through grit teeth, her pale face twisted with the strain. Samantha gritted her own teeth as she felt the electric thrum of energy sizzle in her fingertips, the dagger-esque glow pulsing. Together, she shouted, channeling the fight deep within her. With a burst of resolve, she lunged for the dagger, grasping its hilt tightly. A flare of light erupted, illuminating the shadows in stark relief. The grasping darkness recoiled, hissing and shrieking, revealing slivers of terrified faces peering through the dark. They were trapped as much as they were dangerous. Take my hand, Samantha yelled, reaching for Amy. We have to face it together. Just as their fingers connected, a horrifying howl erupted that sent a chill down her spine. The shadows surged forth like a tidal wave, consuming the light, engulfing everything. What is this place? Amy cried. It's our past, our ancestors' sins. Samantha yelled, her voice trembling. The shadows twisted around them, palpable and heavy, almost suffocating. The weight of acceptance pressed down on Samantha's shoulders. Deep within, she felt the tug of guilt, remorseless whispers urging her to succumb. This isn't just about us, she said, infusing her words with a determination that rattled the shadows. It's about every soul they've touched, every drop of blood spilled. The shadows hesitated, almost recoiling as if considering her words. Your power comes with acceptance. Her mother's voice layered over the howls, resonating through the chaos. Samantha closed her eyes, a torrent of pain and memories flooding her. Faces of family lost, fragmented stories wrapped in secrets. She felt the truth rise within, an ancient burden. Let it burn, she screamed, thrusting the dagger toward the darkness. Let the truth consume it all. With that, a blinding light burst forth from the dagger, forcing the shadows into submission. Screams echoed through the air, and a violent wind gusted, rocking the room. Then, through the searing brightness, a shadowy figure broke free from the chaos. It swirled into a human form, her mother. Remember, the apparition called out, desperate and pleading before the light began to fade away. But just as quickly as the shadows vanished, an eerie silence fell over the space. Samantha stood panting, the dagger still in her hand, and Amy's anxious face set in stark relief before her. Is it over? Amy breathed, her voice trembling. But Samantha knew better. The air was thick with anticipation, charged and fraught. No, it's just beginning. As she looked around, shadows lingered in the corners of the room, a fading promise. What else had she awakened? And what other truths lurked in the depths of her family's history? A faint whisper echoed through the air, chilling Samantha to the core. It's not the end. The darkest hour is yet to come. With dread pooling in her gut, she realized the journey was far from over. What more awaited them within the clutches of the house, and how much more would they have to sacrifice to unveil the shadow's true intent? Samantha's heart raced as the silence pressed down around them, a heavy blanket that stifled any remnants of hope. She could still feel the chill of those shadowy fingers pulling at her, and a thrum of fear echoed through her body, mingling with the heat of the dagger in her hand. Amy's eyes darted around the room, searching for escape routes that didn't exist. What do we do now? She whispered, her voice trembling like fragile glass. Shadows flickered along the walls, whispering secrets only they understood. Samantha took a breath, forcing her thoughts to quiet. We need to find the tome. What did my mother say? She felt her grip tighten around the dagger, as if it might ground her as the shadows swirled. It has to be here somewhere. Suddenly, the whispers grew louder, mocking, jeering, drowning them in a chorus of despair. You're too late. The past never dies. They seemed to echo from the very walls, melding with the shadows in a cacophonous shriek that threatened to shatter her resolve. Shut up, Samantha cried, the voice that was once filled with fear now laced with anger. I won't let you win. The shadows recoiled, almost hesitant, and for a moment, she sensed a shift. Was it fear or simply annoyance? Amy was still beside her, visibly shaken but steadfast. We need to work together, she urged, her voice stronger now. If those shadows are fed by our fears, let us not give them anything. Samantha nodded, adrenaline flushing her senses. They had taken enough already, stolen precious pieces of her family history. And now these shadows wanted to claim her. Let us remember, Samantha said firmly, recalling her mother's voice as if it were a prayer. We will face the truth and confront whatever waits for us. Together, they whispered their family stories, reminding themselves of laughter, love, and moments that didn't belong to the darkness. As they did, the shadows shrank, twisting and writhing as if in agony. But just as a glimmer of hope flickered, the walls groaned ominously. You cannot escape what is owed. A deep voice rumbled from the depths of the dark. Samantha and Amy froze, their courage wavering. Everything comes with a price. The shadows bellowed, swirling around them with renewed fervor. They became thicker, darker, alive with rage. Samantha leaned into the warmth of the dagger, her grip tightening. We have nothing to fear, she whispered, the words echoing in her mind. We're not your prisoners. The shadows hesitated, almost recoiling as if struck. In that moment, the familiar outline of the tome manifested in the darkest corner of the room, pulsing as if it too had been waiting. There, Amy pointed, just as they surged toward it. An icy grip clamped around Samantha's ankle. She stumbled, and the dagger flew from her grasp, skidding across the floor. No! The cry slipped out before she could stop it. Amy strained, reaching for her, but the shadows surged again, pulling them apart. "Fight them, Sam. Don't let them take you," she screamed, voice rising against the howling chaos. With a scream rising from deep within her, Samantha fought the pull, every fiber of her being pushing back against the suffocating dark. She could grasp the edges of the truth, feel them brushing against her reality. "You win," she bellowed, forcing her way back towards the dagger. But as her fingers finally closed around its hilt, a blinding flash of light erupted, and something deep within the shadows screeched in fury. The shadows twisted and roared, encircling them both. "It's too late for you. The contract has been drawn." As they locked eyes, fear and determination danced between them. "What contract?" Samantha shouted in reply. The walls began to pulse, images revealing the grotesque version of their ancestors, faces morphing in a grotesque dance of agony and guilt. "Each deed brings a reckoning," the darkness hissed. "And you have awakened it. We are bound to your blood." Samantha's heart sank into her stomach. What had they released? And who were these shadows, really? In that very moment, tremors began to shake the house, the whole structure creaking, as if it too were a living entity waking from a long slumber. As the walls closed in, and the shadows twisted and tugged at their sanity, Samantha and Amy prepared to face whatever horror awaited them. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together," Amy shouted, her eyes blazing. And then, another whisper brushed against Samantha's ear, softer this time. "You are not alone," gripped by both fear and the smallest glimmer of hope. She realized the true horror lay just beyond the next moment. The legacy of their family would unveil itself, but at what cost? Their resolve steeled, but the shadows had a plan of their own, one that would claw for their souls and demand payment. What awaited them beyond the veil of darkness? The tether of familial obligation pushed deeper, threatening to reveal secrets best left buried. Samantha and Amy stood at the center of the chaos, a whirlwind of shadows, a tempest of souls caught between realms, demanding recognition and revenge. The air buzzed thick with an electric tension, darkness writhing like an angry serpent ready to strike. "Together," Samantha repeated, the word an incantation that had become a lifeline as the shadows lunged again. Leaving her with a deep-rooted fear, Samantha reached for Amy. Their fingers connected, a tether against the abyss. With every ounce of strength, they stood firm. "We will destroy the tome," Samantha cried, determination igniting within her. "We will end this nightmare." An intense light pulsed from the dagger, illuminating the swirling mass of shadows. "You think you can escape your blood?" The darkness hissed, voices echoing and colliding like a haunting symphony. Sam's heart raced, the shadows pressing against her skin, but she refused to falter. "We're here to reclaim our legacy, not drown in it." Beneath the swirling depths of the room, the tome thudded ominously as if answering her. Power surged in waves of light from the dagger, peeling back the layers of truth their ancestors wanted hidden. "We're not your prisoners," she shouted, energy flowing through her as memories of her family seeped into her consciousness. The ceiling groaned as pictures shifted, grotesque portraits of family members, each a specter ensnared in sorrow. "You are tied to us," the shadows shrieked, fingers of dark mist creeping closer. "Your blood carries a weight, a spectral debt to be paid." "No," she fought back, desperation washing over her. "Not anymore. It ends tonight." With a flick of her wrist, she directed the daggerous radiance toward the tome. The shadows twisted and shrieked in protest, but it only gave her strength. Time seemed to stretch. She could feel the ancestral weight trying to pin her down. "Mother, guide me," Samantha cried out, the dagger shining brighter than ever. The room trembled violently, a furious eruption of energy clashing against the pulsing darkness. The shadows hesitated, the faces within them contorting from malice to confusion. "You have awakened the past, but can you endure its backlash?" In an instant of clarity, Samantha saw it. The tome was the heart of it all, a vessel of their family's haunting legacy. "Together we can destroy it," she gasped again, pulling Amy closer, squeezing her hand tightly. Amy nodded fiercely. Yes, we have to. The shadows dove at them, but with every shout of unity, the darkness shrank back. Their connection fueled an aura that pushed against the oppressive wall of shadows. They needed to conjure the power of acceptance, embracing every painful memory, every thread of their history. Samantha felt it building. You are not our chains. You are our truth. They chanted, their voices harmonizing with the surge of energy. The dagger shone like a beacon, casting light over the shadows, forcing them to yield. The chaos reached a deafening crescendo, and with a swift arc, Samantha plunged the dagger into the tome, the ancient leather screaming as it split open. Let the truth burn, she shouted, the fusion of their voices igniting the air like a firework bursting in the night sky. An explosion of light erupted, engulfing everything: the shadows, the voices, the history entwined with pain and regret. Samantha felt herself lifted, a profound warmth wrapping around her, anchoring her from falling into despair. As the light dissipated, the shadows screamed, dissolving into the ether as if banished to another realm. Their cries faded, rising to a whisper, leaving behind an eerie silence. Samantha and Amy collapsed upon the floor, breathing heavily, their bodies bathed in the aftermath of freedom. The world felt lighter. The shadows that once hovered were now just echoes against the walls. Is it over? Amy whispered, peering into the dimly lit corners as if expecting a surprise attack. I think so, Samantha responded, trembling yet relieved. The remnants of the tome lay charred, the dark shadows cast by an ancestral lineage evanescing into nothing. Felt as though the weight of generations had lifted, granting them both the breath to genuinely exhale. Let us get out of here, Amy said, standing and holding out a hand. Samantha took it, weaving through the remnants of memories no longer shackled by burden. As the last tendrils of darkness faded, they emerged into the welcoming embrace of dawn breaking through the dusty windows. Light spilled into the house, illuminating it as if it would finally breathe again after years of holding its breath. They had faced the dark, had unmasked the horrors entwined in their bloodline, and had survived. Stepping outside, the chill of the morning air greeted them, but it felt refreshing, invigorating. They glanced at each other, a newfound understanding passing between them. They were no longer just sisters bound by family. They were warriors of their own destiny. Whatever's next, we can handle it. Together, Samantha declared, her heart full of determination. And with that promise echoing in the air, they walked forward, leaving the haunted past behind and stepping into a future pulsing with life, fire, and hope. You need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to support the channel. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about the ending. And share this video immediately with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Only true fans will understand the importance of these actions.